Welcome and thanks for joining us on another episode of the WealthTech Insider. I'm your host, Danni Grande, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Peter Warne, Joint Managing Director at Finura Group. In this episode today, we're going to get the crystal ball out and walk through our 2025 predictions, all for the year ahead in financial services and wealth tech. At the end of 2025, we're going to revisit these predictions and see what we got right, what we got partially right, and where we missed the mark entirely. Hey, Pete, how's it going?
Danny, I can't believe we're nearly at the end of January.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary, isn't it?
Start to the year.
Well and truly into the year. We didn't get off with a slow start, did we?
No, it was like jumping on the treadmill at full pace. I regret not coming back to work incognito for a couple of days, maybe just to give myself some breathing space. But anyway, lesson learned for next year.
That's right. Slowly.
I think I was so eager to get back to work just to have a breather from my children.
Yeah,
over the school holidays that I just jumped into it too quickly. Yeah. But anyway, great to. It's already been a hectic start to the year in terms of news and views, and some predictions already coming to pass. So yeah, it's great.
They are, aren't they? All right, let's get stuck in. So what I'll do, I'm going to read through our 2025 prediction, and then we'll talk through it. But I think first, we did put this on our report. We think there's going to be two types of companies in 2025: those that are going through an M&A and those that are about to go through an M&A. And the challenge ahead isn't really technical capability, it's cultural adoption and operational integration. And we know that one CEO recently told us we don't have a technology problem, we have a change management problem. And we really feel this perspective perfectly encapsulates the journey ahead for wealth tech in 2025. And I think we can certainly say that that is the case for all of our clients. Change management is always the biggest hurdle that we need to get through when we're making tech change.
Hard to sell though, Danny. It's hard to sell change management as exciting. It's
it's not exciting.
Your daily battle. I mean, you're the guru of change management, but I think it's just so overlooked, whether you're integrating two businesses together or you're adopting a new bit of technology. We are a very impatient species, human beings, and I think we grossly underestimate how long things take to change. So this is going to be an interesting year.
Something we've got to adapt to, right? Is, going back to humans and who we are at the core of it all. Change, but especially in technology, it's fast, it's changing all the time. And, we want to adapt really quickly to it, but it's not the case at all that we can adapt quickly to such a huge thing. All right. Okay. Let's go to prediction number one. Advice tech feels the squeeze and stays in neutral. As advisor numbers look settled at 15,000 for the foreseeable future, we expect margin squeeze to take full effect across the technology value chain. Those offering maturing products and services with revenue models tied to advisor numbers face three systemic challenges: system growth of 0%, rising compute costs, especially with AI, we'll talk about this a little bit more, and emerging nimble competitors with lower fixed expense bases. Traditionally, tech companies aspire to the arbitrary performance metric of the rule of 40, growth plus margin equals 40%. If growth is 0%, then margins must be 40%. That doesn't leave much wiggle room for discounts, let alone R&D. Advisors should have realistic expectations about the innovation wealth tech providers can offer. The one shining light is likely reduced development costs for building AI functionality. However, these will not be provided for free. What do you think?
I mean, of all the predictions, this is the one I'm most rock solid on, I think. I just think it's an economic reality we're facing, and it's a horrible one in the sense that our industry is not growing in terms of advisor numbers. And so we all need to come to that realization around that. And I think in the same way that advisors are quite comfortable putting client fees up because of constraint in supply, I feel like, we've got to accept that they will not all fall to the bottom line. So probably the one thing though that will change, and seems to be, we've got to buy a sample set at Finura because our clients typically want to invest in technology if they're going to pay us to be there. But they certainly understand they just can't keep adding people. As their businesses grow, people are just cannot be thrown at the problem. So, but what I would say is that it's going to get harder for tech companies to keep just pushing price increases continually without adding some sort of value along the way. But the squeeze is there. Absolutely. The squeeze is there. And I don't know what the breaking point is, but it feels like we're not far from it.
Do you think too, advisors traditionally and still think about technology spend as an operational expenditure? not necessarily an investment. You know, that does make sense. It can be a huge expense, right, when you add it all up. But I think, you know, we do work with our clients on ROI and looking into the future at, you know, a technology investment and when it starts to reap rewards. And those rewards look really good after, after a few years. But it does take a few years for those rewards to be sort of recognized. So again, you know, this is really slow burn. Do you think we need to sort of maybe start shifting our thinking to looking at technology as an investment rather than an OPEX cost?
Yeah, I think the only way that's going to really land is when, you know, as the industry is decoupled from this whole, when you value a financial planning business as a multiple of revenue, which is what was hardwired into us for 20 odd years, and those valuations were underwritten with buyer of last resort and all those things that have happened over the years. We're moving away from that pretty fast, particularly for larger firms. And so I think once we start getting evidence, and I'll be curious to sort of talk to some of the business, the M&A consultants, particularly over the year, once we start seeing perhaps a wider range of EBIT multiple valuations for financial planning businesses and start unpicking what is driving those wider ranges. So at the moment, it ranges from 6 to 9 as a guide, multiple of EBIT for a financial planning business. We know in the US it's much higher, but equally we know in the US it's a much wider range. And I would suggest, our guess at least, is that if you want to start getting the upper end of those multiples in the future for your business, and I know this because we consult to some of the people who invest in financial planning businesses, they're going to be looking for the business's track record of investing in technology and yielding benefits from those investments to prove that the businesses are scalable. So maybe that's when the rubber hits the road. The mindset shifts. I hope it does.
Yeah.
And I think for the leaders it is, all right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, prediction number 2, platform monogamy. The era of platform promiscuity is drawing to a close, driven by both economic necessity and operational pragmatism. Multiple platform usage is driven by legacy, managing best interest duty and diversifying operational risk. As best interest is reviewed under tranche 2 of the DBFO, we expect advisors will drift towards a single platform. Tech Health benchmarking revealed a doubling in firms indicating a preference to use only one platform in 2024, now 12% of IFAs. This isn't just about cost savings, it's about creating integrated advice ecosystems where data flows seamlessly and WealthTech comes pre-integrated. Is it the Holy Grail? Be the Apple of WealthTech. Platforms that can deliver end-to-end solutions spanning advice delivery, practice management, and client engagement will win in this new landscape, effectively becoming the operating system for advice businesses. And we do expect NetWealth and Hub24 to continue to be big winners should this prediction come true. Their combined market cap is now the same as ASX Limited. That's huge, isn't it?
Yeah. Who would have thought? You tell me, Danni, how many issues that we see in financial planning businesses stem from data being spread across a really wide range of product manufacturers?
Yeah, I would say it's the number one issue that advice businesses are trying to grapple with, and having those insights over their business. But also, you know, multiple platforms equals multiple ways of having a process in place. So multiple applications, multiple ways of dealing with those product providers, different processes for each of those product providers and platforms. So that's a lot of time out of the back and middle offices back days to kind of deal with multiple platforms. So yeah, I think it's a really big issue, and yeah, something our advice businesses are starting to talk about. We traditionally, you know, our jam isn't talking about platforms or recommending platforms or anything like that, but it's really coming up in conversation lately a lot more than I feel it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it surprises me how many businesses, IFAs, run sort of platform RFP processes and things like that. They don't run tech RFP processes, but they do with platforms. And yet the platforms is probably where you see arguably the greatest similarity in pricing and features and those things. I think where the disparity in platform businesses is what capability they can bring above and beyond the core platform, right? And that's probably why the shout out was there to Hub and NetWealth, that have clearly demonstrated a willingness to invest in the ecosystem above and beyond core platform. This is probably the one prediction the media jumped on a little bit, because it seems like everything to do with platforms people were kind of curious on, but that's where the most money is at stake in our sector. It's funny, an interesting CEO said to me the other day he thought it was a really bold prediction, this one, or a dangerous one, and I don't think so. Like I feel, I love being challenged on this, but I feel that if that is the core of the problem, many of these products are becoming increasingly less differentiated, sooner or later businesses are going to say, well, gee, do we have to spread the money around as much as we are? Noting, of course, that a lot of the reason why businesses are using or have money with 6-7 platforms is because they've grown through M&A. They've just inherited lots of clients, and it's just too bloody hard to move some of the clients as well. But I think the caveat on this is it's probably more active platform usage, Danni, where they're really just directing into 1 and 2, and we're sort of seeing that already. And I do think if QAR, if there's less stringent safe harbor requirements and the platform pricing is all within a few basis points of each other, then it probably becomes more of a business decision than a client decision.
And I think that maybe the boldness comments are, probably more compliance driven. It's, best interests has always told us that, you have to recommend multiple platforms for your clients and to hit that compliance requirement. But I think, I don't know, I'm happy to be challenged on this as well. But I think one of the things that could be in the best interests of the client is things like, getting their applications through quickly and getting really good support and service from those platform providers. So
getting a timely review report that's actually up to date and not 3 weeks old.
Absolutely. And, things like data, again, we'll go back to data feeds and things like that. We've got quite a few of our clients that are sort of preparing their review reports at the beginning of the week before the client comes in. And by the end of the week, the data is out of whack and, they've got to redo it again. And it's just that's not in the best interest of the client, to potentially be seeing bad data, especially if that data is sort of feeding through to a client portal, for example, and that's not right. So, advisors are sort of, leaning towards the platforms that have these more efficient systems in place around data, I think, essentially, and also that application process.
Yeah, look, we're not doing our job. If we put out some, contentious ideas in the sector, all things being equal, this feels logical. It goes this way, and really, the prediction was designed to stimulate some discussion with our friends in the platform side of the industry that we talk to all the time to go, well, they should be at least wargaming this. Scenario planning is an important part of a business strategy. And if I was running a platform business tomorrow, I would absolutely be wargaming. Well, if this does actually get hold, what does it mean for us and how do we respond? And it doesn't mean you have to be the Apple of the world. You don't have to be a walled garden as we proposed. If there's room for Apple, there's room for Android, in my view, on this. And that's why we know certain platforms go, you know what, we're just open architecture will always be that way. And they'll do well also. But it's having that awareness that, you know what, you could be in a position where just relying on being the second or third platform as your core strategy may not work.
Yep. All right. Let's go to prediction number 3. Industry super. This is probably another huge one. Industry super forced to bring tech, advice and operations in-house. So 2025 marks the year when industry funds stop merrily dabbling in technology and make decisive moves towards insourcing. Regulators have made it clear to trustees that they cannot outsource responsibility for member services, and scrutiny of the woeful member claims experience of CBUS is just the start. I think you've got some good stats on this, Pete, how woeful that actually was.
Yeah, 10,000 members had their claims delayed for nearly 12 months. Financial impacts of that were well over $20 million. And I think that's low personally. And I just think it's not so much that, it's just to be letting someone down at one of the worst possible times in their lives. I can think of nothing worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about the delays in pension payments?
Yeah, so one of the major super funds, ARD, had a massive delay in pension payments, had well over a week. And, if you're a self-funded retiree and that is your only source of income, that is a shit place to be. That these super funds, whether they like it or not, and the government has engineered this outcome for Australia. Certainly when you and I retire, Danni, I'm never retiring, but when you retire,
with all my millions.
With your millions. But if we are going to push people and having these income stream products and all the rest of it, we've got to pay them on time. You got paid on time last month. Well, I hope you did. But you know what I mean? So when employers don't pay their workers on time, there is a shit fight. There is all sorts of consequences for an employer on that situation. Super fund. I was a couple of days late. Sorry about that. We'll put a notice on their website and say sorry. Well, I don't think that's good enough, personally.
There's an irony there, isn't there, with super payments as well. As an employer, if you don't pay your employees their super on time, you're in big trouble and
you get fined. The personal consequences on me as a director is enormous if we miss these things. I don't know, Danni. I hope this is one that we get right, because I think the Australian population is going to be in the future more and more dependent on the administration performance of these super funds. And what makes me really shit scared now is this prediction has come true already. Iress has sold their super fund admin business literally 2 days after we published this report.
Yeah.
That is now going to an overseas owned company. Link was sold to MUFG, which is an overseas company, and is now outsourcing a lot of their admin offshore. How is this going to get better? These businesses are owned by private. They're not even Australian owned anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's the answer to everything being Australian owned, but I have massive concerns that this is going to get worse before it gets better. And I feel that super fund trustees who, let's not mistake, really want to do the right thing for their members, really care, are going to look at some of these arrangements and go, this is not satisfactory anymore. We cannot wear the risks as a trustee. I reckon this is going to blow up big time. Personally.
Yeah, I agree. And we had predictions around digital advice last year and where that's sort of headed as well. And I think, the irony of all of this is that they've got to turn this ship around and shift their focus. Obviously they're going to have to shift their focus. It's critical that they shift their focus internally and solve some of these issues. So, I'll open up a can of worms, but where does that leave us with digital advice, which we're all excited about?
Look, in the same way, I think scrutiny was really good for the financial advice industry, and it really was. It was painful, but it was good, long-term good. I think scrutiny on the superannuation sector will be good for it as well. So there's a lot of political stuff going on with this and all the rest of it, and I'm on the side of the consumer always with this sort of stuff. But I feel that superannuation as a sector is a bit of a back-padding industry because it just grows no matter what. The superannuation sector has this. I don't know how many awards are given out to super fund. I feel like every super fund wins an award every year, and I'm kind of tired of it. I just genuinely think that the only thing that matters is member satisfaction and actually delivering on your service promise. And if you fail on that, none of those things matter. And so I think some real independent regulatory scrutiny on super. And you know what? If the consequence of that is that member fees go up a bit more, I'm happy if my mum has to pay an extra $2 a week admin fee to be guaranteed her pension payments arrive on time, and and if she needs to claim an insurance to get paid on time. I'm okay with that. And I reckon most members are too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right,
Sorry, I'm on a bit of a high horse today about that super one.
Yeah,
it's really got under my skin, this one.
You got under your soapbox. Let's get you off. Let's get you down a couple of pegs.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about prediction number 4. All right, private equity ownership reshapes advice tech. The private equity narrative in wealth management is entering a new chapter, shifting focus from acquisitions to integration and corporatization. He knows that top-line revenue growth in professional services has limitations. A more controllable element is managing non-revenue generating people costs. A strong investment thesis exists to build highly scalable and efficient advice infrastructure. PE firms will focus on building proprietary capability with best-of-breed technology partners. Conferences and free keeper cups will not drive tech decisions.
You
Are we
like
sure about
cups?
that? I do like my keeper cups. So I like my
or the socks, Milford socks. I do like the socks.
I'm into the charging cords.
Well, they are handy because usually you lose them at conferences and all that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, you can never have enough of those. In the US, we saw significant margin expansion through PE-backed ownership of advice, buying businesses at 8 to 12 times EBIT, corporatizing them, and building robust technology. Proved a path to riches for groups like Focus Financial Partners, which was acquired at 56 times earnings in 2023 buyout. Winners will be technology companies that can build aligned technology partnerships with the new owners of advice. Others may find themselves fighting it out for the very long tail of the market.
Yeah, it feels like the corporatization of financial advice, doesn't it? To an extent.
Yeah.
And it's happening really fast. And certainly AZNGA is driving that. There's some other private equity businesses driving that. And, and full disclosure, like Finera consult to some of these companies, and they're really clear on their intent. They do want to build some industrial infrastructure to support these businesses to firstly make them more scalable. That's the first piece. But to make them, more sort of consistent and dependable. That most financial planning businesses, even the big ones, say the big names, they all started as small businesses at some point. They were usually 1 or 2 advisors, and it just kind of grew from there. As you'd expect, the infrastructure just never kept up. The client growth is there, and tech was never a core competence, or tech was provided by a licensee or whatever the case was. Certainly we've heard from overseas investors in this space that they are quite surprised by how backwards our technology is and more the thought process around technology, that it's quite, it's very compliance driven. It's provided by someone else. There's lack of investment over a sustainable period, and often lack of people, dedicated people in these businesses to run tech. So it's just part of the evolution, I reckon. It's really exciting. I think it's really good personally, because to be honest, a lot of things that get done across our industry, I look at our old business where we did advice templates, like Advice Business on Xplan. I mean, we were doing the same thing for 100 different businesses.
Yeah. We talk about this all the time, don't we? It's just, I feel like, and we have a framework that we work towards when we're putting our tech roadmaps and recommendations together. And not pretty much, every advice business is doing the same thing across the advice journey. So you're onboarding your client, you're doing the discovery work and fact-finding, risk profiling, etc. Then you're producing the advice, then you're implementing the advice, then you're reviewing the client, and then you do that in a circle forevermore, hopefully, while the client is a client. Of course, you have your nuances underneath each of those headline workflows or whatever you want to call them. But broadly speaking, we do the same thing. And I feel like we've really overcomplicated the way that we do advice. There's way cooler things we can be doing in our businesses and with our clients than complicating an advice journey.
I think it's because every business is in a bubble. Danny, do you reckon it's because we're all in a bubble and we just fend for it? I'm in a small business, I'm in the suburbs, I got a problem, I got to find a process, and rather than reaching out and talking to other people about what works for them, I just kind of fend for myself.
Yeah. And if you've done, yes, to be fair on those businesses that have been maybe lacking in resources and have, one or two man businesses that have had to go it alone, of course you're going to patch your process together just so that you can get by day to day. But then, that sort of turns into a legacy that somebody has to kind of fix into the future, an overcomplicated legacy.
Yeah.
In some cases.
And you go into businesses, right? And you always ask, well, why do you do it that way? And everyone kind of looks at each other and no one can tell you.
Yeah. And then we do a process review and simplify it, and nothing bad happens. I can guarantee nothing bad has happened by simplifying the process.
Yeah. And the other big one I think that will probably be more of a focus moving forward is where we question, are we doing a lot of things for our benefit or for the clients? And what I mean by that is does the client really value that thing that you do, that you spend 3 hours before every meeting preparing for? In every meeting, did you ask the client, did you get value from that chart? Like, do you get value from that bit? And if the client says no, well, it's sort of a question, well, why are we dusting all this time on that? So, it's something in our business we continue grappling with. But I know for us, often the value in what we do isn't a PowerPoint slide or whatever. It's just that right bit of advice at the right time in the right moment that caused something to change, that delivered immeasurable value. And often for a financial planning client, it's stopping them from doing something stupid. It's just something like that. Yet we almost hide behind some of these processes and things we do for clients as a safety blanket to justify our fees. But if you actually ask the client, I know with my personal financial advisor, we pay him a lot of money because, well, I think it's a lot of money, but maybe not for him, it's not. But I pay him because I know if something happens to me, Catherine, my kids, he's going to be there to support my family through a shit time. I'm okay with paying him for years should that scenario happen, because I know he'll be all in to help him. So I don't know. I feel like we should be less anchored to processes and more anchored to outcomes.
Yeah. Yep. Couldn't agree more. All right. So I'll just add to that, one good way to see what your clients are looking at, and if they're looking at it at all, is to do a Loom video.
Yes.
Loom tells you who's watched your video. And so if you send a Loom off to somebody and you into this crickets, 5 days later, nobody's watched your video, then, maybe that's sort of a way that you can start to think about gathering a bit of client feedback. I 100%. Love Loom, but of course everybody watches my Looms. And
I don't speed them up, Danny, or anything like that.
No, nobody speeds them up. Nobody watches my videos and looks at their phone in the background while I'm talking. All right. Number 5, gap widens for IFA tech needs and services. The tension between independent financial advisors and their relationship with technology has reached a critical inflection point. Venura Tech Health benchmarking shows that only 23% of firms are happy with the technology support they receive from their primary tech partner. Yet despite this, fewer than 20% of firms regularly review technology relationships, even though technology now ranks second only to talent as the most critical issue facing their business. The real question isn't whether this gap can be bridged, but whether the current technology delivery model for IFAs is fundamentally broken. In parallel with our prediction of price hikes, limited innovation, or service improvements, we may reach a tipping point where firms proactively seek new partners to meet their technology needs. And a disclaimer on this one, we've said this every year. Sooner or later, we're probably going to be correct.
If you keep throwing it against the wall, it'll stick eventually, Danny. Yeah, look, I think this, we obviously track satisfaction, willingness to change software, like things in your tech health benchmarking tell you a lot. I think about, and inertia is a big issue for our sector. People do put up with a lot before they'll actually go and change a bit of tech or change licensee or change service provider or whatever. But to what degree do those sort of things become just so big that people go, you know what, I've had enough, I'm doing something else? I think it's lack of options. I think it's barriers to change are significant, and laziness is probably a factor as well. This is probably a bit self-serving, this prediction, because I just think this is probably our future. How do we mold our service for our business, and provide value to the industry and customers that they really need for, we know what they need now, but thinking about what's needed for the future. And it probably will be smaller businesses like ours that have the ability to disrupt themselves quite quickly if we need to and adapt, where I think a lot of us are anchored to other business models that are a lot harder to shift from. So I would say, I believe that there's a whole new layer of service providers that haven't even been created yet. They're going to be supporting this industry in the next 10 years. It ties into a later prediction about AI services and things like that. But we look at the tech side and we just think, you know what, there is new business models that have to be developed out of this for things to meet the needs of financial advice businesses in the future.
Yeah, I've got two opinions on this one. I think we can't always blame the vendors for all of our issues. And like we just said earlier, we have really overcomplicated a relatively simple, I'm not dismissing our regulatory environment that we're working in and any of that sort of thing. I think just the process is relatively straightforward that we need to follow. So I think we can't always blame the tech vendors for that. And we're trying to fit square pegs into round holes. We always say the tech does what it's supposed to do, essentially. So, I think there's a bit of self-reflection that we need to do as advisors to kind of see if there's anything that we can change to make it work. Yeah, I think that's just something to consider. The other thing I sort of would think about too is, I'd implore the tech providers to really go out and listen to their clients and not just listen to their biggest clients, their most profitable clients and all that sort of stuff. Go out there and just do some analysis on what those real pain points are that are happening in advice businesses. A lot of the time it's integrations, right? How many times do we have conversations about advice businesses being so frustrated they just want an integration to work, or they just want an integration full stop between two providers? Gone are the days, where we want our tech providers are really insular. Sorry, those days are still here. But that, that model of keeping everything within itself was, the business model of the tech providers, which made sense, but we've moved on from that and we want to have some choice. Let's sort of open ourselves up to that.
Yeah, I think it's an ease of doing business thing. It's expected in 2024. The first thing when we look into bit tech and Finura for our own purposes, if it doesn't connect to core things we use, it's just out the story. And you're quite right. We've got to take some ownership of the tech ourselves. I think it would be wise for the tech companies to not only talk to the people who are maybe the quiet, disenchanted, as you described them, who are not the noisy people, but maybe talk to some of the businesses that are nailing it. Like, why are certain clients really, really happy? Why are others not? Work out the difference and educate the clients on what's the difference. And I think there'll be a few key learnings for that around what makes things work and what doesn't make them work. But I think as a sector, you're right. We do have a mentality of probably just blaming the defenseless, the people that can't defend themselves. And it's quite interesting for us, Danny, because we you particularly build a really close relationship with the clients. And once you get through the initial noise, they'll often admit privately, oh yeah, we probably haven't done our end of the deal very well.
Yeah.
And tech's a partnership. If you really, I genuinely feel, ignoring how different views on different companies, but I feel that the businesses that treat their tech vendors, their consultants, dare I say, and others as business partners, and want them to be successful as much as you want to be successful, that's a critical thing for us. So we have suppliers that we work with at Finura all the time. I'm on their team, right? I want them to be successful. If they go out of business, we're screwed. So I feel And I don't think anyone's quite thought through that just yet. And so it comes back to the pricing thing and the margin thing. Everyone's telling me I want to screw this vendor for this price deal, and I want, all this sort of stuff. I'm like, but if they go out of business or if they're not actually making any money, do you think things are going to get better for you?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And we've got some really successful businesses that have really, like to your point, really good relationships with their partners, and they're doing really well, and they utilize their partners in the right way. They're really incorporating them into their day-to-day and utilizing them really well. Prediction number 6, we're nearly there. Business opportunity of the year, AI services. Surprise, surprise. We had to throw it in. The real AI opportunity in 2025 won't be in building new tools, but in solving the thorny implementation and integration issues. Sequoia Capital estimates the global software market to be worth $650 billion. Add in services and that market expands to $10 trillion. SaaS is being flipped to services as software. Back office outsourcing quickly becomes a service delivered via software. Finura estimates that the average advice practice with 4 advisors and 10 staff will likely spend $100,000 on software today. If we turn that same advice firm into 7 advisors and 3 staff using the services software model, would they be open to paying $250,000 for AI services? You bet. We eat our own cooking, and Finura sees this as the biggest opportunity for our consulting division over the next 5 years. Do I have to do something here?
Yes,
Consulting?
you have to say, yes, this is a great idea, Pete. I'm with you 100%. I mean, I'll take the ownership of this one, why I put it in there, but I feel, I mean, obviously, so we sort of talk about AI and Amara's law, which said, so Amara's law basically says we always we overestimate the short-term impact of a technology shift, and we underestimate the long-term impact. So I'm thinking long-term here, to be honest. This is probably not a 12-month prediction, but a longer-term one for us. And so we've obviously gone on this huge journey. What software? Like, remember we used to go, I used to go to Harvey Norman, you buy Windows 95 for $120 and you bring the box home, you upload it and, blah, blah, blah. And you used to buy Adobe Lightroom, you pay once off. And if you wanted the new version, you pay again. And then, some bright spark at some point said, why don't we just charge a monthly subscription for that? And then all of a sudden, trillions of dollars in market caps being created on that idea. And so what Sequoia are saying, I think, is that they believe that the next evolution is that rather than buying software per se, we're going to be buying a whole range of services which are delivered via software. Now, whether we use the software or not is another story, but I would use an example of like outsourcing. So if we were chatting about hiring an assistant the other day, Danni, weren't we, about an offshore person and various things.
You haven't forgotten about that. Yep.
Neither have I. Just got to convince Aaron. Anyway, but really what we need, we want a person for a whole bunch of reasons, but in reality, it's a whole bunch of services we kind of need done for us to help our business with some growing challenges. And so what they're sort of saying is, well, actually, we think ultimately where we're going to land is that there'll be a whole bunch of services delivered via AI that people pay for on a fractional basis, essentially like that. So I'm still getting my head around this, to be honest. There's far smarter people, no doubt, who are working on this stuff, but this is where the $10 trillion opportunity comes from. So they're going to try and convert what would be traditionally delivered by humans, labor delivered by humans, will be converted to services delivered by AI at a 90% margin.
Okay. All right. AI is so interesting, is that we've had 12 months, I guess, to kind of start getting our heads around how this is going to potentially look for our industry. And, at the beginning of last year, when AI was all the hype, it was all in the news, people were worried about losing their jobs. Throughout, power planners were getting hammered for everything in our industry.
The death of the paraplanner, I think, was the
headline
term I saw.
Yeah, horrible stuff. So, I don't think the reality of it is that AI, it is just another tool in your tech stack at the end of the day. Sure, it's an excellent tool that is super cool and can do some really great things, but you still have to consider it strategically and where it's going to fit, how you're going to use it. We're going to use it as our personal assistants, but also more broadly, how is that going to fit into what we do, and all of the jobs that need to be done across the business, and how's that going to work? So I think we're kind of super excited, and then we got a bit confused, halfway through the year about how this was going to work. Then we might have tried a couple of things. They didn't really work very well. All the AI tools are being thrown in front of us. And, here we are now sort of taking a step back and thinking, how's this going to work for us? And again, we're sort of thinking about some relatively boring jobs to be done across the advice journey, but AI can obviously file noting is the biggest one that I can think of at the moment, and the impact that has is huge. So how we're going to do things like that to bring in those incremental efficiencies, I think, is where we need to go.
Yeah, I really think this is a 5-year journey, and I think we will be working with our clients on a fairly long-term AI transition. Probably where I'm less clear on, Danny, is like I presented to a client yesterday, a board of a client who did a strategy offsite, and they were like trying to work out, we were sort of working through what would the future org chart look like of that organization in 5 years' time with AI agents, for example, were doing a lot of the jobs and all the rest of it. And we've got a bit of a sense of the type of roles we think are involved. So I actually think it's the same people, just in different roles. I think paraplanners will be in our industry doing different roles, and how they do their jobs will change a lot. But we are talking about one of the greatest sort of retraining things that's ever going to happen in white collar history, probably since email was invented.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some downsides. Like, email was great, but there's also some downsides to email. We're going to find those with this, I reckon, as well. And small businesses are in this really interesting place where they can actually adopt stuff really, really quickly. But as one of our clients said to us yesterday, oh yeah, we'll try anything, but we'll usually give up in 2 weeks if it doesn't rock our world in 2 weeks, we'll give up. I'm like, yeah, you got to have a slightly different mentality.
Yeah. Give it a good crack.
So I think what, you and I and the team need to spend more time on is actually going, okay, well, let's get a really clear sense of those guiding principles we want to take our clients on around the future of AI and how it's going to be integrated properly in a business, how we're going to retrain our people and make decisions as we go, noting that the tech's just moving so bloody fast. No one really knows, and so I think the client I spoke to yesterday, their board, I said, look, just set 6-month projects with AI, no, if nothing longer, because really anything longer, it'll be redundant. We're already hearing people that bought all those file noting apps last year are just turning them off and are just using the transcription on their Samsung or their Apple phone and using something else and using Teams and going, you know what, I got 90% of the outcome and it's on my device. I'm happy with that. So this is just where we're going to be at, I think. I do feel that there is in a cool way, there is a whole business opportunity for people who are really interested in this space to support various industries on this transition. Or you could go work for Donald Trump on his Stargate initiative, which he announced yesterday. Did you hear this? You don't watch the news, Danny?
I don't watch the news. No, what happened?
Oh, so Donald Trump, he's had a busy first 24 hours as president. So he did a press conference with some of your favourite people, Danny, the guy that runs OpenAI, Sam Altman, who, I think is a big question mark on his character at the moment. Larry Ellison from Oracle, all good American companies.
Excellent.
And he announced that the government's going to back a $500 billion AI infrastructure initiative involving NVIDIA, OpenAI, SoftBank, which is the guys that backed WeWork, and Oracle, in a desire to actually nationalize, almost, I'd say this is the nationalization of American AI, is how I describe it. And it has taken less than 24 hours, and Elon Musk is already starting to argue with Trump, saying, you don't have the money to do this shit. Good luck. So it's quite funny. But obviously the thing about this is, it fascinates me. This is why AI is going to be so political this year. But really what they're talking about is actually we just need the processing power. Like, this is the hardest bit with AI. So if you don't have the processing power, you can't compete. And so they're going to, obviously they're going to improve a lot of local manufacturing of AI chips. But this is why they're going to let Facebook and all these companies build their own nuclear power stations to run this compute. This. I think all the gains that we've had from energy efficiency, Elon Musk thought electric cars were going to be good for the planet. This AI stuff's just going to create a whole bunch of energy consumption that we can't
right.
even...
So how can you say, if you're a company that's using AI, we're one of them, full disclosure, you can't really say you're a sustainable, can you?
No. Well, this is the thing. Like, we always get marketed to by these green tick companies saying, if you do our audit, we'll say you're a sustainable company. Well, I'm like, That's bullshit now, because we pretty much have to turn off all the AI, because AI is one of the least energy efficient technologies now going.
Yeah. Yeah. This whole opens up a whole new can of worms. Oh, I could
Yeah.
go down a big rabbit hole.
Okay. Sorry. We're on a tangent. Got to keep it in line.
So are you saying then that we could provide potentially AI services to Donald Trump?
Oh, there's just some people that just can't be helped.
Do you think he'd have a
Yeah.
good change management program in place?
Oh, change management's what he does best. And yeah, but look, it's going to be fascinating. Yeah, it just shows you how much money's involved, right, in this stuff. I don't know. We're just along for the ride at the end of the day. But I mean, you know, it is pretty funny. I mean, this is not that we don't, you know, I've got no views on politics, but what I would say, the fascinating thing about this election for me was it was all about the tech companies. The relationship between the tech companies and the government is becoming almost intrinsically linked. And so it was so fascinating for me to see Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all these people bending the knee for the president, whoever that was going to be. They don't care. So still jump on whatever team. But equally, it goes the other way. The government needs to be in lockstep with these AI companies as well.
I know. It's such an interesting time. It's such an interesting time.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
We should start another podcast about that. Separate, because some people aren't interested in this shit.
Okay.
Let's talk about change management or fact finding.
About something happy. All right. Number 7, we've got 2 more to go. Marketing Technology of the Year, podcasts and YouTube. As you can see, Pete and I are incredibly professional podcasters. All podcasts and YouTube hardly qualify as new technologies. 2025 will mark their emergence as the dominant channels for advisor marketing and client education. Finura has had the fortune of working with trailblazing firms that are leading the charge on these 2 rocket ships for content outreach, and the results are pretty extraordinary. One firm we work with has reported over 70 leads on average per week from their podcast. That's crazy. Why is it so successful? It's where your target clients are. Australians now watch YouTube 22 hours per month. Over 40% of Australians listen to at least 7 podcast episodes per week. Podcast listeners over 60 grew by 49% in the past 12 months. In 2024, Netwealth spent $2.4 million on the content app Flux. Experienced content marketers will tell you that this price for a platform with 430,000 members was a bargain. Advice firms seeking double-digit multiples will direct significant resources to content generation and lead targeting management technology.
Yeah, I'm going to make a bold, controversial call here. I think if you're a financial planning business and you're just overwhelmed with things you know what to do this year, I reckon the one thing I would try and do would be get some podcast content out there, YouTube, whatever you do. Just have a crack. Everyone's bloody embarrassed. I mean, I did it. I listened to our first ever episode of this podcast, Danni. It was, yeah.
We don't recommend that any of our listeners go back and do that.
But, you have to go through the process. You have to learn, and we're still learning, right? Yeah, I think the data speaks for itself. I think any business that's interested in organic growth, which is the cheapest form of growth, should be doing this sort of stuff. It's not expensive to buy a couple of microphones. There's good online platforms that can help you do it. Even Spotify provides stuff for free now, and we can reach out to us if you want to know details about what we use to what we've learned some lessons about what works and doesn't work with tech. So on this stuff. So yeah, and the YouTube stuff's just a no-brainer. More people watch YouTube than Netflix now.
Yeah, the analysis is really good.
Fun fact, if Alphabet sold off YouTube, it would still be one of the top 100 companies in the world.
Wow.
They bought it for $1 billion.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, I think advisors have a real place in this space. They can educate. We do our podcasts. We're not selling anything. We hope it's educational and we give some good tips and insights and all that sort of stuff. Advisors certainly have that opportunity to get the word out and educate their clients. And it can be snippets. It can be small. You don't have to spend heaps of time on this once you get your head around it, especially if you've got, a partner that's helping you do all of this. Then I think it's definitely well worth it from a profile building perspective. Okay. And our final one, a business technology of the year, agentic AI. The most transformative technology of 2025 won't be a new CRM or digital advice. It will be AI agents functioning as virtual team members. AI developers such as Zetaris are building AI agents to augment human routine processes. Salesforce are putting a lot of efforts into building out Agent Force 2.0. Sounds like a bad cop movie. They claim this technology is now solving 83% of all customer queries without human intervention. So, we sort of think, I guess, the clear winning use cases in advice is going to be commissions processing. That's the number one problem we see in our insights, actually.
Absolutely.
Platform transactions, we certainly know that data is not great when it comes, we talked earlier about review reports and things like that, and compiling those can be painful. Cash and portfolio reconciliation and SMSF admin.
Yeah, 100%. And we know some of the platforms are already working on this, which is cool. And Hub are definitely working on it. I think Net Wealth are as well. So that's pretty self-explanatory. So just really quickly for the people that aren't sure what an AI agent really means, it's going to mean a few things, but I'd say fundamentally it's a combination of generative AI solutions, which we've already sort of talked about, and what we used to call robotic process automation, which is basically having robots running processes behind the scenes for us. The difference really with the AI agent concept is we can actually both develop and run those agents effectively using natural language and natural prompts. So Copilot, Microsoft's Copilot agents, which they launched in December, you can actually prompt it using natural language to build the agent you want to build, and it'll sort of come up with that process for you. So traditionally, a robotic sort of automation was really, you needed to be like a bit of a programmer, Danny, to sort of think about how to put these processes together. But we've already seen things like Zapier and others now using natural language prompts to basically build processes. But what I really love about agents is they'll learn. So if processes aren't working, you can give the agents feedback for improvement rather than having to rebuild them from the start. I mean, that's incredible. And we're even seeing that with generative AI, where you can prompt the AI and say, no, you got that wrong. Can you have that try this, this, and this? So it's almost like coaching an employee in real time, but then it continues to learn. And unlike some employees, it'll actually take the feedback on board and
not get upset.
So yeah, and look, I think the agent thing, it'll go rammed down our throat. If you're particularly interested, like Salesforce is running a free conference in Sydney called Agent Force. This is their big play against Microsoft Copilot. If you're in Sydney, I'd go along, have a look, maybe some of the content online, and they'll actually be demonstrating some use cases for agent AI in the early days. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. Excellent. All right, that's it for our predictions for 2025. Please wish us luck. Well, like I said, we've
already got one right.
We
are selling their super business. We predicted that. Yeah, luckily we got that in 2 days prior.
Yeah.
Not one I was happy to get right, by the way, but anyway, that makes sense for Irish shareholders. I totally get it. But yeah, let's hope we have a slightly better strike rate than last year.
Yeah, definitely. We'll check back in halfway through the year, Pete, to see how we're tracking and give a bit of an update on how things are going. Thank you for listening to another episode of the WealthTech Insider. If you haven't already, you can go and complete our technology health check at www.finuragroup.com to get an idea of how your business is tracking and where you could potentially make improvements with your tech stack. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and share the episode with your network. And we'll see you next time.